Hi, I'm attorney Keith Johnson, and welcome into the Lawyer's Lounge. Today's guest is Sheriff Eugene Gino Brantley. He's the newly elected sheriff here in Augusta, Georgia. We're going to talk about a range of issues. We're going to learn a little bit more about him and the service that he's embodied throughout the past several decades. It's a show where we're going to talk about the blessing of discipline, toughness, and being the underdog, and how he looks forward to shaping this city and the youth for years to come. So sit back and enjoy it one last time for season 1 here in the Lawyer's Lounge. Without any further ado, I want to welcome Gino into the studio. Thanks for coming in, man. How you doing?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well.
Good, man. So let's just jump right into it. What have the last, 7 or 8 months been like? I know it's been a bit of a whirlwind for you.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say, like a whirlwind. Drinking from a hose pipe, as most people would say, but I've been enjoying it, man, embracing it and trying to make the most out of every situation and every opportunity.
Yeah, and we all know that it's a big job, and I get to see it behind the scenes. You know, as a defense attorney, I visit the jail a lot, and I have seen the positive changes that have been made since you've taken office. And so I want to really just take my hat off to you, because it's not an easy job, and it's one where you have to really be in a position of authority, but also you have to be personable and get out into the community. Has that been one of the main focuses of this first 6 to 8 months?
Yes, absolutely. So, my campaign was being accessible, being active, and being approachable. And so all those things allows us as officers and law enforcement to, be more appealing to the public and to help build the bridge between law enforcement and community.
Absolutely. So, because you're such a dear friend of mine, we're going to talk about a range of things, all right? So, because I want people who don't know you to get to know another side of you like I do. First and foremost, you're a former college athlete.
Yes, sir.
Which is always something that I like to highlight, because I feel like it's a special bond that you have, because you had to have the discipline and the work ethic to even make it to that level. And so talk to us about growing up in South Carolina and what that was like.
So I'm from Ellsville, South Carolina, which is a small town, small
Is that
community.
the Low Country?
Absolutely.
All right.
All
right.
And so, actually when I moved from Winston, Salem, North Carolina to Ellsville, South Carolina, and I actually didn't live in the town of Ellsville. I lived out in a small community called Nicksville, South Carolina, which is about 7 miles or so from Ellsville.
Okay.
So if you think Ellsville is the country, Nicksville is even more country than Ellsville.
Yeah.
And so I had to deal with like sand gnats and things of that nature. And but it taught me to appreciate things a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Who were some of the more influential figures kind of growing up? Let's say, like around between 10 to 15 years old, kind of who were some of the people who you look back on now as Sheriff of Augusta, Richmond County, and say, you know what, some of these values of getting up early and the hard work and treating people right, that came from such and such?
Well, that came from my grandmother, who was a pastor.
Okay, so you grew up in the church.
Grew up in the church.
Okay.
My mom's a pastor now. And so a lot of who I am is because, growing up as a pastor's kid and going to church 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes 2 or 3 churches on Sunday.
Yeah, man, long day.
Right. But it shapes you into who you are, and it gives you perspective. You have values, you have morals, and you have things that you just won't compromise with. And so my mom, my father, my grandmother, she was probably the most precious person in the world that I knew, my grandmother. And my coaches, just growing up, playing sports, they teach you life lessons, how to win, how to figure it out.
Yeah.
When things aren't going well.
Yeah.
And so, they all played an instrumental part in me growing up.
There's something about sports in the Deep South, especially the game that we love. We always talk about football, you know what I'm saying? When was the first time that you started actually playing football?
Well, I actually started playing football, I want to say when I was in middle school.
Okay.
But they had a rec league when I moved to Elstall from Winston-Salem. Now, in Winston-Salem, I played baseball, very little basketball, but mostly baseball.
Okay.
Little league baseball was real big in Winston-Salem. And so once I moved from Winston-Salem, North Carolina to Elstall, we didn't have a baseball team. And so then it became sandlot football and basketball. Even playing basketball, we had a clay court that we played basketball on. But that's when I started to play football because there were no baseball teams.
Yeah. And, some of those backyard games, that's really when you develop a lot of things. Sometimes you playing against the older boys, and guess what? It ain't no referees out there, right? Like, you got to have toughness and some confidence, and so that can also, translate into aspects of life as well. And so you were actually really good at football to the extent that you went and played on the college level.
Yes, sir.
And so walk us through kind of like those high school years. When did you really realize that, hey, I might be pretty good at this, and also I might want to do this at the college level?
Well, I always had dreams and aspirations of playing in the NFL one day. And once I got to high school, I was always, pretty fast. And as a sophomore, I started at cornerback in high school.
Man, corner.
I was one of the faster people on my team. And of course, you got to be able to run to play corner.
That's right.
And we played our cross-county rivals one day, and, man, I got toasted out there. I don't know what was going on.
And that's part of it, right? Like, I always tell my son that, because he plays the same position that I played and that you were just talking about, when we mess up on the back end, the whole stadium sees it.
Right.
When the 3 technique doesn't maintain its gap, the coach knows it. The linebacker knows it. But when you mess up on the back end, the band's playing, everybody's saying, he got beat. So it comes with that responsibility, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and so, that's when I really started to get excited about playing football. When as a sophomore, I was able to start at cornerback for my high school team. Okay.
And then you started getting recruited at some point. And so you were trying to decide between a few different schools, and you ultimately chose Savannah State?
Yeah, so we went on a couple college trips. Elsa was a single-A school, so we only had about 400 people in our high school.
Okay.
And so we went to, like, Presbyterian College, Elon College. I visited Winston-Salem State. And so at that point, the plan was to go and play at Winston-Salem State with one of my friends who I played college with. But somehow I was supposed to receive a full scholarship, but they wanted me to claim, like, in-state residency because my mom's family was primarily from Winston-Salem. My grandmother, my uncles, they all lived there. And once I didn't do that, they wanted to give me a half a scholarship. Mm-hmm. So that means they give you half and you pay the other half. And so my dad and my athletic director, John Martin, took me up to Savannah State, where I met with Coach Bill Davis at the time and Joe Crosby, who was the defensive coordinator. And they allowed me an opportunity to walk on there because all the scholarships were at that point already taken.
Yeah.
So, I walked on at Savannah State.
Wow. And so that's a telling fact, because when you walk on, you got to earn your keep, right?
Yes, sir.
And I think later in life, it could build a perseverance that I'm going to show y'all.
Oh, yeah.
And so as a walk-on, you know what you can do, but I think one of the first jobs that you have to like embrace when you get on campus is like, I have to prove to my teammates that I belong.
Right.
And so when did you start playing? Did you start playing that first year, or did you redshirt?
No, so that first year I played on special teams. I was a real hustler, go-getter. You know, like I said, I could run, and I wanted to play so bad. Like I was an outside linebacker, but if they needed a cornerback, I would run out on the field. If they needed a strong safety, I would run out on the field. Mm-hmm. And so one day I remember my coach saying, "Look, man, you got to make up your mind if you want to be a defensive back or you want to be a linebacker." Yeah. But I had the speed to play defensive back. And so I ended up being one of the faster people on my team. I ran track in college, 4x1, open 100. So I had, pretty good. Yeah. I could really run. Right. And so as a walk-on, when people are on scholarship, they always get the first dibs at everything in practice. Okay, we got first team, we got second team, we got scout team. And so I ended up, just wanting to play. And on the scout team, I just gave them so much hell.
Yeah, that they
coach was like, guy? we gotta get him on the field somehow.
Yeah, he's gonna be one of our best 11 at some point. And so you embrace that. You had a great career there. You played outside linebacker your first few seasons, and then your last season, I believe you played inside.
Yes, sir.
And just touching on it briefly, what do you think being a linebacker really translated to, just in the mentality that you have to have first playing it, but then as you move on from football? Because I feel like there has to be some toughness to play linebacker.
Right.
You have to be smart because you get the plays from the DC. So, how do you feel like that just kind of symbolized your personality?
So, being a linebacker, you have to be tough. You have to be able to stand in and fight off the guards on occasion.
Who are the big boys? For those of you who don't really know about football, those are the big boys. And us on defense, we don't want the big boys to get their hands on us. But we gotta,
You still have to, fight through them to make the tackle. And then from time to time, you have to figure out if it's play action. You got to drop back into coverage. But the mentality of a linebacker, or as Michael Parsons say, a lion backer. You have to have a mentality of a lion to be a linebacker. You got to be ferocious. You got to feel as if you're the best on the field, and so it kind of translates to how you deal with things in life. Because sometimes the road gets rough. And you still got to have the wherewithal to figure it out and to know, like, man, it's just a test, and I'm going to get through it. I'm going to figure it out. Yeah. And tough times don't last. Yeah. Tough people do.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it any better myself. And I know those of you who have joined in with us on the prior 9 episodes know how much I talk about sports, especially the game of football, because I do feel like it epitomizes teamwork, toughness, discipline, perseverance. Because literally, you don't play football and not get knocked on your butt.
Right.
Like, you gonna get knocked on your butt at some point in time during that game, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But you have to get back up, and you have to depend on your teammates. So this is just one more example of a successful person who played sports, who use sports to get an education, and now they're taking those skills forward with them in life. So let's.
Let me just say, like, we just finished a 2-day basketball camp.
Okay.
With Keldon Johnson and his brother, who plays with San Antonio Spurs.
Wow.
And this was a free camp, and we had some of the local coaches to come and help out. And when I was interviewed, and I was, kind of telling the people who were interviewing me that, you learn so much about how to deal with different situations in life, and you have to depend on other people's. Basketball is a team sport, and so you got to make sure you're doing your job. You got to make sure they're doing their job, but you got to rely on each other to get anything accomplished.
That's right.
The goal is to win, not just to play the game.
That's right.
People say, it's all about just playing the game. No, it's about winning. You play to win.
Score, yeah.
If you just playing the game because you just love the game and you're not excited about winning and you don't want to play to win,
you're doing the wrong thing.
Then I don't want you on my team.
I don't want you on my team.
I want to play to win, and I play to win.
That's right. That's right.
So Coach Jerry Hunter was there, and man, when I tell you, he was such a inspiration just to see how he connect with the kids and how he deal with the kids and how they react to him when he say stuff. I mean, you can see it. And so for someone that's won 3 back-to-back state basketball championships at Westside, I mean, it don't take long to be around somebody and to understand why they are winners.
You see why they are successful.
Oh, yeah. You just hear it, the way he talk, the way kids respond to what he says. And that's why sports is so important. And it's, it just teaches you to compete, because as you get older, you got to compete for jobs. As an attorney, you got to compete in the courtroom.
That's right.
And so you do what you have to do to be successful, and like going the extra mile, or doing the extra research to make sure, okay, in this case, case law study and things. A lot of people take different things for granted. They may not go the extra mile to kind of figure it out to be successful, but that's what separates the winners from those who are just playing the game that's it. Just to play the game.
I always say, man, if we're not keeping score, we're not doing it the right way.
Right.
Because I have a client and they want me to win, man.
Right.
It ain't
that's what they're paying you for.
We did our best, but you're going to prison for life, So we definitely use sports to be our best selves, and you've done that throughout your whole career. So let's kind of transition. So football ends, and it ends for all of us at some point in time.
Right.
Then you at some point get into law enforcement. So how old were you when you first got into law enforcement?
I was 30 years old.
Okay. All right.
30.
So you had a time period in between where you didn't go straight from college into the police academy.
Right.
Okay.
I played college. I played a year over in Italy with the Florence Apaches. Then I ruptured my Achilles.
Wow.
And so I couldn't really run for about a year and a half.
That's a big injury.
Yeah.
I mean, we just saw Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum just tore his, Aaron Rodgers a few years ago.
But the good thing about it is, with the advancement of medicine, you could bounce back. Back then, Dan Marino was the only one who,
it was almost a career
who ever came back from an Achilles injury at the time. Wow. And was a successful player on any level, whether it was baseball, football, or basketball. And he was a quarterback, so of course,
didn't have to be
he didn't run much anyway, And so I remember him having this tall boot of a shoe, of a cleat on, which kind of protected his Achilles and stuff. And so, it was just one of them injuries that you just didn't bounce back from.
Yeah, and it was just kind of, I guess, what forced that transition. So you get into law enforcement. Tell me, was it a lot of thought that went into it? Like you always had an interest in it, or was it just an opportunity that was presented to you and God just took over?
It was more so an opportunity that was presented to me. So at the time, I was a recreation director for the town of Elstall.
Okay.
And I was staying here in Augusta, but I was driving back to Elstall. And I would, come back to Augusta, and I'm in the gym, and Tank worked out in the gym. And a lot of the guys that was on the sheriff's office used to work out in the gym. And so we just kind of started to bond and talk, and they was like, man, you need to come join the sheriff's office. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But eventually they convinced me to go and, put in an application at the sheriff's office. So I went through everything, and I got hired. And at the time, I remember I had braids in my hair.
Okay.
And
Sheriff had braids, y'all.
I remember Major Weaver saying, well, if you get the job, you're going to have to cut your hair. And I was like, well, if I get the job, I'll cut my hair, but I'm not going to cut my hair and I don't have the job.
That's right.
And so I got the job. I remember cutting my hair off. I took a picture. I still have the picture this day before I cut my hair. But, it was necessary. It was necessary.
Yeah. And so who was the sheriff at the time?
Sheriff Strength.
Okay, Strength.
Yeah. It was his first year.
All right.
And that was
Shout
in
out to
2000.
Sheriff Ronnie Strength and Patty, two folks who are near and dear to both of us, just really, really good people.
Absolutely.
And so when you started out, was it eye-opening just to kind of see what it was like having that responsibility of the badge and the gun when you kind of are doing it for the first time?
Well, when I first started, I worked in the jail.
Okay.
And so I was in the jail for like a year and a half. But it was easy for me to transition to being a police officer up here because I didn't know anybody. Okay. And so when you become a police officer in a community where you know everybody, then it's kind of hard because like, hey, that's my friend, or that's my cousin, or that's my relatives, right?
Yeah.
But when you grow up, or you're working in a community where you don't really have no friends outside the ones that you notice in law enforcement. Yeah. It's just easier to do your job, because you don't owe anybody nothing. Like there are no relationships. And so you can just put your head down and go to work. Yeah.
What were some of the misconceptions that that maybe you even had about police work when you kind of first got there? Because I can, tell people that just the amount of, stress related to the job that I just see from my vantage point as an attorney is something that I didn't fully appreciate until I became an attorney. Just the fact that, you are responsible for safety and what you do in real time is scrutinized. And I know I'm guilty of it because I have to be scrutinizing after the fact, but these officers are doing things in real time.
Right.
They don't have the benefit of, okay, well, let's see what.
I never imagined you being a quarterback, Keith. Especially not a Monday morning
quarterback. That's the best kind, man. That's what they pay us for, man.
Right.
But it had to be some aspect of it that you're like, man, like, wow, this is something that I didn't necessarily know about.
I just found it for me to be rewarding, like to be able to help people. And, like they call police officers like sheepdogs. Like we take care of the ones who can't necessarily take care of themselves. And so it was like always a game of, okay, these are the bad guys, we the good guys, and we got to protect, the people who can't fight for themselves. And so when someone is done wrong, it's up to us to kind of figure it out and just kind of help fix it, and kind of keep the decorum of the community, as you know, and so I found that to be very enlightening and something that, you know, like I said, it was a challenge, you know, because you know, people would run from you and they would fight with you and stuff, and you know, I was a linebacker, so I was like, okay, but I was fast. And many of them didn't get away.
Yeah.
You know, I lost a few of them, but most of them, I probably say
You walked them down.
probably 90-something% of the time,
Yeah.
I got my guy.
So I've seen Gino in action. You know, back in the day, we used to have this establishment here for teenagers called Tenant Windows. And, you know, I remember being in high school, going to these clubs and stuff like that. And I didn't know Gino at the time. But I would see him because, as is customary, these businesses hire off-duty officers as security, and just to keep everything going. And so this club in particular was kind of known to get a little rowdy. Looking back on it, I shouldn't have been in there, Gino, but I was in there with my boys from the neighborhood, and I remember this one night.
Put your hood up.
Put your hood up, man. What you talking about? This was way before sheriff and attorney, right? But he was in there working. I was with some guys from the neighborhood. I was about to sign my scholarship. This was right before Christmas, my senior year, and I had some friends coming into town. And I like to think my people didn't start it, but it was a problem, and it was a fight that broke out. And Gino probably doesn't remember this, but I remember it. One of the guys, you know, was interacting with the police. He didn't want to stop fighting. The police had to come in. And I remember you being there and you telling me, you don't look like you belong here. You need to leave. And I never forgot that. And I didn't forget that because it clicked in my head. Like, this was December, right before Christmas, and I'm signing in February. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going out with some guys that I grew up with, and you don't want to be seen as like, oh, well, you too good for us now. But you reminded me in that space, you saw me, you looked in my eyes, you were with Lampkin was there too. And it was a reminder, almost like a fate type of thing. And I never forgot that. And that's the power of police work that people don't report about, that people don't see. So that was my first interaction with Sheriff Brantley. And to bring it full circle, when I passed the bar in 2009 and I started working as a prosecutor, Sheriff Brantley was at the courthouse working for court services as a bailiff. And he didn't know me from Adam. And I introduced myself to him, and I told him that story. And ever since then, we've been locked in. And so I got a chance to see him as a young officer. And I just wanted to share that with the audience because at those, you know, during those times, that was part of what you all were there to do, keep it safe, but also just try to give some instruction to some of us young boys that didn't know what the heck we were doing.
Right.
You know? And so what do you think are some of the characteristics that makes a good police officer?
I feel like every officer has to have integrity. You can't do this job without integrity. So all of our precincts, all of our substations has integrity on the wall with the sheriff's office logo, because without integrity, I mean, like, you know, you being an attorney, once they find out, hey, man, this guy's, you know, he lied once on this case, then he's no longer credible.
You're done.
And so you have to, one, have integrity. The next thing I would say is you need to, outside of integrity, you got to have morals and great character, and just be someone who's don't mind serving others, you know. And so that's, that's what makes a great officer. And I've always told people this: if you're someone with great character and great morals, you'll make an outstanding officer, because you're just looking at what's right for the most part, and you're trying to decide, okay, is this right or is it wrong? And based on your morals and your values and things of that nature, that kind of allows you to see things in the right perspective.
Yeah, because I think, also what you're saying is basically like you got to have that stuff inside of you and bring it to the job.
Right.
Because high-stress jobs, I think you would agree, it exposes who you are. It doesn't necessarily build your character. It exposes your character, right? Especially when you're in a position of authority.
And they say, that's what money does. You give a person money and power, they'll show you exactly who they are.
Yeah.
And so, I pride myself on always being Gino, always being genuine, always, wanting to do things for the right reason. And so that's just who I am. Yeah. And so when people see me and they see me out sometimes and they be like, one day I went to the Walmart on Riceboro Road, like 2 days straight, and I ran into the same lady.
Yeah.
And then she had the same problem. Her daughter was locked up in Finley Road, and we talked for minutes, and I ended up reaching out to one of the attorneys for her. Mm-hmm. But, a lot of times, the average person would say, well, I'm going to go to a Walmart North Augusta or Columbia County. But I like the Walmart I go to. I'm familiar. I know where everything is. Yeah. And although I have to speak to 15 to 20 people, you do. And I have to stand there and talk with them from time to time.
Life has changed.
But, hey, these are the people that voted me in, and they need to see me in the community, in the same places, in the same store.
Yeah.
And and so if I have to talk to them, I'm cool with that,
And those are the people that I would presume that are kind of like the people who raised you too, just good, solid people who might not have had a lot of influence, but they had God in their life and they had a sense of humbleness, and you never forgot about that.
Right.
So let's talk about your sheriff's election, and what gave you the belief that you could unseat an incumbent after him doing 12 years. Certainly he did a good job while he was in office. The public spoke. We're not here to necessarily rehash an election, but just for you to have the belief that this is something that could happen. Because I remember talking to you during that time period. Right. It wasn't always a a great reception that you received, just to keep it real.
Right. And so, yes, I faced, many challenges, and believe it or not, some of the people you would have thought would have been a little more understanding and wanted better for their community, weren't for whatever reason. But I serve a awesome God.
Amen.
And I prayed about it, and I stood on faith, and I went out and put the work in, and just got it done. The Bible says faith without works is dead. And so
and let's stay right there. Lord, let's stay right there, Gino, because anybody, so we have people who are going to hear and watch this who are not in Augusta, but I can attest that this man worked so hard. I mean, one of our favorite things to do is talk about the Dallas Cowboys. All right, he's a Dallas Cowboy fan like me, okay? And I remember calling Gino one night because something had happened, and he was like, wait, what? No, man, I'm out here holding signs. I'm out here canvassing. I ain't worried about the Cowboys. And that's when I knew this man gonna win this election.
Absolutely.
So you didn't just have the aspirations to be sheriff because I want to be sheriff. You actually put the work in, and people in the community got to know you and got to trust you. And so I'm sure that was one of the goals that you had, just to make sure that people knew who you were.
Right. And I felt like we needed change. Like we needed something better than what we had. Not to knock Richard, but I feel like, everything has a shelf life.
Of course.
And sometimes, you just have to change and move on. And I always, whenever I spoke, sometimes, a lot of people don't like change and they don't like stepping outside of their comfort zone. But there's no progress without change. We can keep doing the same thing. We keep getting the same result, and expecting something different is idiotic to think that things are going to change.
Yeah.
And I just felt like the community that I lived in and that I policed in deserved better than what we were getting. And I just knew somebody needed to step up and do something. And, nobody was willing to do that. And so I just took it upon myself to step out in spite of and do it.
That's right. And exercising that faith, but also working alongside it. And so, like it is around the country, we are fighting a battle, trying to keep our youth out of the justice system. I see it from my vantage point as a juvenile court judge and a defense attorney, obviously, and you see it from law enforcement and running an agency now. We're both fathers, and we both, love our children dearly. What do you believe is one of the indicators to, let's talk about young boys, winding up in the justice system? Do you think it's lack of male influence? Do you think it's a lack of discipline? Like, what are we fighting up against, Gino?
I think we're fighting bad parenting choices. I think if you look at most successful kids, their upbringing, how they were brought up, and how they were raised to, either be men. And a lot of times people will say, you need a man to raise a man, to be a man. That's not always necessarily the case, because my mom and my father were separated for like 9 years.
Okay.
So there was a large portion of my life that my dad wasn't there.
Okay.
And my dad died when I was 22 years old. So for half of my life, I was just raised, primarily by my mother. And so I turned out to be a good kid. But having that male father figure in your life is still important. And I think once him and my mom got back together, he taught me, and I was like 10 years old then. So he taught me.
That's an important age right there now.
Right. And so he taught me how important it was to get up, go to work, how to be on time, how to, like some of the things that sometimes we take for granted. And so those are the things that, I think that we don't have is, one, parenting and the lack of male figures in our kids' lives to show them like how it is and what it is to be a man. Like, a man should never hit a woman. Certain things that
certain just absolutes.
As a man, you just don't do. And so when they don't see that, they don't understand that. And if they grow up in an environment where that happens, then they tend to take on just
like
what they
almost
see.
Normal. The saddest thing that I see is when I have clients who, they're under 21, they're in trouble, daddy's in jail, sometimes uncles too, and it almost is like normalized. Like, okay, well, I'm gonna go down down the road, which is
and that's why education is so important.
Yeah.
Because if you're better educated, you're gonna make better choices in life. Like when we spoke down in River Glen,
Yep.
and you didn't hear my speech, but I heard yours, and it was powerful. But we basically said the same thing. You got choices. There's always going to be a choice, and every choice comes with a consequence. And then there are circumstances that surround those consequences. So, I call them the 3 C's: choices, consequences, and circumstances. And they all impact your life and what's going to happen because of the choice you make. And so that's just the lack of education. Our kids nowadays don't have the emotional intelligence to deal with some of the things that they're faced with. And so they get angry, they want to shoot somebody, they want to do, and all that comes with the lack of education. Our education system is just failing our kids. And part of that goes back to parenting. Like if you don't force them to go to school, if you just don't, take the necessary steps to make sure they are going to school and they just drop out, then they don't learn, then they don't have knowledge, then they don't develop the skills that they need to be able to deal with situations.
Be successful. I always say, who's going to care about you more than your parents at a young age? So the court system can only do so much. Mentors, try to stand in the gap, and we all know great mentors and great people. You're about to go to a program after this for young people, but nothing can stand in the gap of good parenting and a solid foundation. But I know that you all are trying to engage the community. As we wrap up, can you tell us a little bit about some of your goals for the sheriff's office and outreaching the community and really rebuilding that trust? I know you've had several events just this year to try to engage the community and build that public trust.
All right, so my main focus is to bridge the gap between law enforcement and our community. And I feel like that's what it takes to, one, solve crimes. When something happened, you have people who will pick up the phone because now they know, like they feel like they can trust you and they can get things done, so they don't mind calling. And it just goes back to when I was working in the neighborhoods, in the housing areas, Dogwood, Underwood, Cherry Tree, Gilbert Manor, Allen Homes, M&M Scott, Lake Olmsted, Barton Village.
These are some real areas.
Cooney Circle.
That he is naming for those of you who not from here.
And I was able to build relationships with the people, the residents who lived there. And we were able to, get things done. And for the most part, when I went to work, we had some quiet days. There were days we got very few calls, because they were like, nah, he don't play like, nah. And they would know when you come to work, they know what time you get off. And, like they'll be like, nah, I know when he's, like the day I would catch someone walking through the projects and I pull up on them and they on the bar list and they'd be like, oh man, Rock, I was just leaving, man. I knew I wasn't supposed to, I didn't know it was 12 o'clock, y'all already at work.
Yeah.
And, but, how you police is basically how they will take whatever you do. Like if you allow it, they'll do it. If you don't allow it, then, they'll get tired. Either you get tired of taking them to jail or they'll get tired of going.
Yeah.
And man, I had a motive. Like I never got tired of doing the job, man. And
doing your job. So it's a little bit of tough love, a little bit. And that's what I want to end on. I think there have been some themes throughout your life that I'm just kind of picking up on. One of them is belief in yourself, discipline, and tough love, because what you have talked about is a form of love that we are trying to turn this thing around, but we cannot let you run around the neighborhoods and be hellions, And so What do you want your legacy to be? And I know we are just starting out with this first term, and I do say first term because I believe he's going to be our sheriff for a long time. But what do you want people to know and remember about you?
I guess I would love for them to say he cared and he meant what he said, but genuinely he cared about our community and the welfare of our community. That's it. No other accolades, man. I just want people to know that it's just, a genuineness to, want the best for them and for our community as a whole. And for no other reason, like I just, want people to be able to get along. And if you have a conflict, to be able to resolve the conflict without killing each other. Life is much more precious than just having an argument or not agreeing on something. And so that would be it.
That answer just kind of sums up what I know about you and what I hope the listeners and viewers, see is that you're just a humble man, wanting to do right, the epitome of public service. I've seen you interact with my own son when we went down to the Jacksonville for the Jaguars and Cowboys game, and just how you got to know him, and you actually bumped into an old friend when you were down there,
right.
And the way that he reacted to you just kind of tells me everything that I need to know. So I wish you much success and blessings and safety. Our community is lucky to have you. I'm glad that you put yourself out there to run, and we need leadership like you. So thank you for coming on to the Lawyers Lounge. And can you just give a little bit of your contact information, just not your phone number, but just how can people, find, help at the sheriff's office and any other outlets that you all
they can call 821-706-821-1000. My office, my assistant's number is 706-821-1068.
Okay.
But if I can be as successful a sheriff as you are an attorney, then, man, I'll be moving some mountains.
My man.
You're definitely getting it done, man. I mean, people notice it. People see it. I see it, because, of course, I have to let them out of jail when you when you when you get them off, but it is what it is, man. We all have a job to do.
That's right.
And we just try to be the best at what we do, man. And so that's very respectful and commendable, man. So if I can, like I said, be as successful as you, then I know I've gotten somewhere.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I'm sure I'll be seeing you this fall at the house. We're not going to have any Cowboys playoff parties because every time we have one,
we lose.
So I'm coming to your house this time.
That's what's up, man.
But with that being said, I just want to thank everyone for joining with us in this first season of the Lawyers Lounge. It's been near and dear to my heart. And as with anything, when you're doing something new, it's always a bit scary because you really don't know the support that you're going to have and how things are going to turn out. I mean, hey, I'm just a lawyer trying to talk about things that inspire people, real stories, and just to try to do a little bit better than I did yesterday. And this show has been a success, not because of me, but because of the people who've come on to share their stories and people like you who've taken time out of your day to sit back and watch us or listen to us on your drive into work. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the encouraging text messages and phone calls that I've received throughout this venture. And the best part about it is that we're just getting started. We have so much more to cover and to discuss as the days and the years go by. So we're going to take a little break to recalibrate, to reassess, and to go bigger and bolder in season 2. In the interim, you'll still see us on your TV and on your phones, spreading out legal tips and words of encouragement. Never forget that the past is behind you. There is nothing you can do about it. It's frozen in stone. If we do have to look back at it, let it be instructional for you. Let it be a lesson that's learned, not something that's going to carry guilt or shame. The future, it's unknown. It's a beautiful mystery, but we know who holds the future. It's the good Lord. So our job is to trust him with that at all times. But the magic happens in the present. Right now, be where your feet are. Do your very best with the situations that you are confronted with. And after you've done your very best, there's nothing else you could do. Live for the moment, hope for the best. Thank you so much for your kindness, for your support. And until next time, salute.